Excavation Profits Podcast by Excavation Marketing Pros. Interviews with successful excavation and septic business owners, revealing how they market and grow their business in today's economy. Hear directly from the most successful leaders in your business and discover what they're doing to keep their phone ringing, equipment running, and businesses booming. Now your host, Scott Andreessen.
Well, hey guys, it's Scott Andreessen with the Excavation Profits Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I have a very special guest, a mover and shaker in the industry, Weston Zimmerman of SynkedUP. And Weston, you are doing some really cool and innovative stuff in the contractor space. And so I wanted to bring you on so you can share this. And it's working wonders in the excavation industry as well. So this is really cool. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to this. So basically my story in, short, succinct form is I started working for a landscape company in what I jokingly refer to as Podunk, PA in Pennsylvania. We're in the Appalachian Mountains of Pennsylvania, in central Pennsylvania. But I started working for this landscaping company when I was 16 years old. I didn't even have my driver's license yet. I was biking to work, just as an employee, as a laborer on the crews. And really long story short, I, got more and more responsibility and eventually was leading a charge to get our company off of paper and onto systems and processes, using technology and all of that. And we used a number of different products, and most products on the market do have things that they're very, very good at, what they're built for, but what we were struggling to find was a single product that allowed us to manage our lead through invoicing process and also, making sure that we're estimating our jobs correctly and actually being profitable. And what happens when I buy a new truck? What does that do to my pricing? All of that stuff. So in the middle of trying to find a product that allowed us to do all of this underneath one roof. We were looking for a needle in a haystack. I came home from work one day and my dad was sitting on the back patio working on his laptop, clicking around on some grass. And he had just started working with a new company. And I was asking him what he did and what he was doing. And he was like, oh, I was testing a software project. And I was like, I leaned in. I was like, you mean you're just building stuff? Like as you see, you're designing it and building it to solve, whatever challenges you're trying to build for. It's like, yeah. So that's where the light bulb went off. And keep in mind, I always have only been an employee at Tesla Landscaping. I don't own the company. I didn't have any money. So off I went to the owners of the company to be like, hey, let's, we're struggling to find a solution on the market that does what we want. Let's build it. And so probably the most naive campaign I ever went on, I had no idea what it was going to take to build software. But here we are. That moment was, that was probably 7 years ago now. But we eventually started building what is today is SynkedUP, and man, sure have been through some incredible, almost pulled the plug moments in the early days, but I'm grateful. Consider myself to be super, super blessed to be here and serving contractors all over North America. And today, man, probably the thing that gives me the goosebumps the most is just coming up to a contractor coming up to me at an event and telling me how it totally saved their business or it turned them around completely. That is, that's our mantra: thrive, not survive. And it's been a awesome journey. I'm loving every day of it.
That's cool. Well, so what was the kind of aha moment in your mind that you needed to help create this software? We're going to dive into a little bit about what it does and the benefits, but what did that look like where you said, I have to create something to fix this problem?
Well, so there were and there are today even still products on the market that do a really good job of the building an app that allows you to schedule your work, send a proposal, send an invoice, clock in, clock out. Those are all borderline commodities. There's dozens of apps that do those things, right? And they do them really well. Very nice UIs, easy to use, all of that stuff. But what that entire category of products does not do, I'll explain it this way. Let's say you go into one of those lightweight solutions and you're building an estimate to send out to your client to get approved. What you do is you go in there and you create a new estimate, you create a new line item, you describe whatever you're going to be doing for them, and then there's a blank empty field there where you type in the dollar amount that you're going to charge for this work. Who's telling you how much that should be? A spreadsheet that you built? Your 20 years of experience and some scratches on a notepad? Like, how are you coming up with that number? That's what didn't exist. Well, I'm sorry. Actually, there were products that solved that problem by itself. Just like how do you build a budget and calculate your finances and automate overhead recovery. There were products that did do that, but not one that married the back office with the front field, people working out in the field, just, needing access to job information and all of that. So that back office and that front field were the two worlds that had not yet been married well in a product. And that's what, I spent most of my time working in the front field. But I worked very, very closely with the guys at Tussie Landscaping that were in the back office. And we just wanted a world where we didn't have to have a long list of homebrew spreadsheets to calculate this stuff. Because spreadsheets are amazing, but they're from a UI perspective, user interface perspective, they're a challenge.
Okay. So, and I agree. And so if I take what you just said and break it down in a simple couple words, are you basically helping contractors to know their numbers and profitability?
That's right. So essentially, there's one way I've already described this problem that we solve is that there are two profit killers for contractors. One is I screw up the math. Like some way, somehow, I'm not calculating the math correctly on my markups, my hourly rate, my overhead recovery. That is a relatively easy problem to solve it's just mathematics. But then there's a difficult one, and that's the second problem that's a profit killer. And that is what I just dub it the resources. And I need to find a name that doesn't require explanation, but I'll explain it. So essentially, if you bid a job is going to take 100 hours, and then you go do the job, and it took you 150 hours, what happens? You lose money.
You lose money for sure.
Even though you could have been using math that was perfect on paper for finding your hourly rates and your markups and all of that, perfect on paper math still does not completely guarantee that you will make money because you could be missing the mark on the resources that you have in your estimate, like hours, material, equipment, subs, that kind of thing. And so both of those things have to be fixed for you to have predictable profits. The mathematics, the know your numbers stuff, and the resources. And so what was happening is even though we had spreadsheets and all of that to do a really good job for us of calculating our hourly rates and all of that, what didn't exist in a product at the time was job costing, holding up my actuals to compare against my estimates, meaning I bid it for 100 hours. It took me 150. That didn't exist all in one product. And that's why we wanted to build SynkedUP. But you asked for a few words. I'm totally butchering it. I'm rambling. But basically, the thing is, what SynkedUP does is it solves both of those profit killers. It solves the math problem. Basically, you just tell the software every dollar your business spends money on, and it calculates your hourly rates and markups and overhead recovery for you in the background. And you just drag and drop in templates and type in what labor you need and what product you need and what subcontractors or equipment you need, and it calculates the number for you. Then turn around and go do the job, and it tracks your hours, your receipts, your materials, everything that you have going into the job, and it shows you beautiful estimated versus actual metrics on every single job in real time, so that you also, if you do make a mistake on the resources of the estimate, you make that mistake once, and then you realize where you went wrong, go back and update your templates and stuff for the next estimate and make sure you're not doing it again. And I'll tell you a story of the power of job costing in real time, because before SynkedUP existed, we were job costing, but we were doing it manually, spreadsheets, the whole 9 yards, right? And I was running a crew. I would go out there and do a job, and not infrequently I'd get a phone call from the salesperson that had originally sold the job, estimated the job. But it might be, 5-6 weeks after the job was done, which was, by the way, when he had finally finished job costing manually. And I would get a phone call from him, and he'd be like, hey, like, we went over hours on this, or we used way more product than we thought we were going to. Like, what do you think happened? Like, what do I need to know for the next one? And the quality of my answer was not great because I was on to my third, fourth, fifth job since then. You get the idea, right? I was focused on production. After we had synced up, we were tracking those hours and materials and products in real time, and the script of that conversation completely flipped because now I had access to it in my mobile app, and I was calling the salesperson before we were even done with the job saying, hey, just so you know, we're not even half done yet. We've already burned through 70-80% of our man hours. And here's why I think this is, either don't pay attention, it's an anomaly, materials weren't showing up on time, the client was difficult, or the weather was really, really bad, or whatever. Or it's like, no, like we simply need more hours, or we need more product to do this job correctly. And the quality of my answers and the quality of our learning increased exponentially. So
Wow.
all those stories to kind of highlight the power and the need for solving not only what I call the math problem, but also the resources problem in your contracting business. And until you solve both of them, you could be losing pretty significant money and not knowing why. And if you don't have the KPIs or the metrics, or if you're not job costing to watch this stuff, your first indication, unfortunately, is going to be cash flow. And by the time that problem is showing up in cash flow, you're months downstream from the root of the problem. And the $1 million question is, what do I need to change?
Mm-hmm. Can you walk us through how a contractor going out to a site visit, okay, they do their due diligence, and then from there, walk me through how they're going to use SynkedUP in the sales process?
Sure. So when the call comes in, you can schedule an appointment, a consultation right in the software, and it sends out an appointment confirmation to them, all that stuff. But then when you're out on site, you can be using your phone or a tablet or a laptop on a mobile hotspot, whatever you want to use, and drag and drop in templates, type in your measurements, and the rest the software calculates automatically. And we use production rates to do that. So, you may track your hours on, say, installing patios or putting in septic systems or whatever it is that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you might realize, hey, a patio of this size or a septic system of this type takes me this long, or, and you can come up with a production rate to say, hey, I need 3.4 man hours per installed square foot of paver patios. And then once you have that, that's a production rate. Once you have that, you can then turn that into a template and a production rate in the software where you just drag and drop in, say, a patio template, type in 600 square feet, and bingo, it's calculating your labor, materials, and of course, the budget is feeding all your overhead recovery and profit markups. So you get a number, there's a number calculating right live in front of your face as you're dragging and dropping things in and typing in measurements, and all the math is calculated for you in real time right there in front of you automatically.
So you have your templates set up in advance with your pricing based on your materials and things that so you have to put some thought into this so it's ready. But then maybe you could even do contractors pad it for contingencies so they could actually give a quote right there on the fly to close a sale.
That's the goal. Unless it's a very complex, if you're in a landscape or a multi-six-figure project that requires multiple design iterations, or a super complex thing that requires you to maybe go get something engineered. Unless it's something like that, you should be able to give a quote right there in the driveway before you leave.
Yeah, because in our space, excavation and septic, a lot of this stuff like square footage, or for instance, septic installs, the size of the tank, I could see how those could just be put into a template, and then you pad it for some contingency and give a quote right there on the spot. That's pretty cool. Well, what is, say, just a total non-techie person that, they're out there with their notepad.
Yeah.
What is the learning curve on this thing?
Well, Frankly, most of our customers are not what they would self-describe themselves as not techie people, right?
Hmm.
But the reason they became a customer and a user and using technology is the pain got so bad. They're like, I have to change. I have to do something differently. And when I say pain, I mean like they ran into that cash flow problem and then weren't sure what to do, right? So um, even a completely technical, if you can text your grandma, you can do this, you know.
Hmm.
So but the learning curve is essentially um, simply getting the first step done, which is work with your dedicated financial coach to build your company budget. And oftentimes when people come to us, it's the very first time they've ever built a company budget. Why do they have to do that first? Because we, or the software, needs to know every dollar their business spends so that they can calculate their hourly rates and their overhead recovery and all of that. So that's probably the biggest like emotional or mental hurdle for a contractor that's never sat, taxes is just something to do once a year and they never build a budget. That feels like a big deal. Like it's a scary word to say, go build a budget. Frankly, most contractors are allergic to the office. They'd rather go to the dentist than meet their CPA.
Hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, that's a big thing, but that's why we also give you a dedicated financial coach to help you walk through that and make sure you actually
Wow.
trust the numbers that come out the other side, because you have to trust them. Then the other thing is just transitioning off of however you were building estimates, whether that was in QuickBooks or on pen and paper or whatever you were using, and building essentially a system and process, templates and production rates around building estimates inside of SynkedUP. The beautiful thing about it is I have talked to many a contractor using SynkedUP. Like I'll give you an example of a guy in California that used to bid multi six-figure projects, and it would take him 2, 3 days on spreadsheets and pen and paper and all of that.
Hmm.
After he had spent a few days building his templates and production rates inside of SynkedUP, he turned around and bid his next multi six-figure project in 15 minutes.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's quite a time savings.
Tremendous. Now, of course, depending on the type of work you do, those different things can vary somewhat. But the point is you save hours. And now, back to the learning curve thing. My philosophy on that is this: um, spending hours on each and every estimate the manual way, where you are the only person in your entire business that knows how to produce a bid for a customer, is hard. You need to go on vacation, you have an appointment, you have whatever, the business stop, or nobody's getting quotes back. That's hard. You're kind of prisoner to your own business. You own a job, not a business. Um, Learning a new system, sitting down for a day or two, and converting everything you know from your many years of experience into a template and a production rate, yeah, that's also hard. Or it can be perceived as hard, even though pragmatically speaking, it's quite simple. It's just that it's a first time experience, it's new. So yeah, it feels hard. My philosophy on that is, well, both are hard. Choose your hard. Which one do
Mm.
you want to end up with?
That's a good way to put it. What impact have you seen this have on contractors' profitability?
Well, we have the results. Results always vary when you have a thing like this. But like we have people, like I said, I'm not joking. Like when I said people come up to me and say, this thing literally saved my business. Like I was shutting doors, I had no cash. I spent, there's this one contractor not that far from me here in Pennsylvania that went from not having, he literally said, I did not have enough of money to put gas in my truck to get out to the job site to finish the job to collect the final payment, to a few months later, he scraped together money that he felt like he didn't have, bought the software, and 6 months later, had 100 grand sitting in the bank account.
Yeah.
So it genuinely. So put it this way: the average contractor in North America, this is based on some various studies, makes single digits net profit, 2 to 5%. Yeah, because there's so many of them that literally aren't making money. And then there's some that are making more, but like that's the average. The average contractor in SynkedUP is 10 to 20. So it
Wow.
has a tremendous boost to your overall profitability. It finally feels like your business is oxygen to breathe. You can go out there and you can invest in the business and hire that admin to make your life easier. And it's just it just sets off a whole chain of events that
Yeah.
leads them on that transition from being, enslaved to their business, so to speak, or owning a job versus a business to actually owning a business that
Yeah.
could run without them.
Yep. And a couple things. That old expression, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity.
100%. Yes.
So your system, your app sounds like it gives them clarity of their numbers, for sure. And the other thing is, I still, I'll talk to excavation contractors that their profit margins are really low sometimes, like under 20%. And these aren't big operations. And when I ask them, why is it so low? And they say, well, because so and so Chuck in a truck is willing to do it without a license, so I need to beat their price. It's kind of going off on another tangent that that's not the right mindset for business.
Yes.
But what do you say to those people that they would rather try to beat the Chuck in a truck and give a low price versus doing it the truthful way of knowing your numbers and what your profit margin should be?
Well, here's the reality. Chuck in the truck will always exist. They will always be there. There will always be someone there that hasn't ran into the reality of running a business and the overhead it takes and all of that. And so they're selling they quit their day job making $25 an hour, so they think charging 50 makes them rich.
Yeah.
That will always be the case. It will never go away. Well, unless I have my way, which is getting all contractors to know their numbers. But anyway, human nature human nature is such that probably won't be the case where it's truck in the truck will always exist. So trying to win jobs based on being the cheapest is a hopeless battle. It will never happen. Meaning it's a race to the bottom, and you will slowly starve yourself to death by doing so. And I argue from experience that is really a cop-out response to not winning the job, when the real truth is you didn't sell your value. You didn't talk about the client experience. You didn't show them the client review. It's
Amen, brother. Amen. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
It is.
Yeah.
So what I tell a lot of people that come on to SynkedUP is like, look, we're gonna take this budget. If you don't like the numbers it's showing you, you got two options: cut expenses or be more efficient with the same infrastructure and equipment that you already have. Produce more. But basically build your budget and then go out there and hone your salesmanship abilities, like selling the value, highlighting the being the easiest to do business with, being prompt, getting quotes back while you're still in the driveway, calling people back, going that last 10%, like cleaning up their driveway after your project. That will win you more business than being the cheapest ever will.
Mm-hmm. Do you have success stories or testimonials from clients that you've significantly changed their business through using this?
Yeah, we do. On our website, we have a whole page there's one page called reviews, and there's another page called case studies. And there's one that was literally going to be closing his doors, found us and turned it around, and he's literally the definition of thriving now. Like, he's building a team, he's making money, and he's on fire. There was that one that I told you about that didn't have enough money to get to his job site, enough of gas money to get to his job site. There's dozens, and those are the ones I know about. We have a lot of customers that don't take the time to come back to us and tell us, but or I'll meet them at an event 18 months after signing up, and then they tell me. So we actually have an award at our Contractor Summit event, our annual Contractor Summit event, that we call Thrive Not Survive. And we give that award away to someone that has had an incredible 180 turnaround in their business exactly like this. So yeah, it's if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, I can give you some links that you can put in the show notes here, that will let you see these people actually telling their stories on camera.
Cool. How do you help contractors that are not tech savvy get familiar with this type of digital tool?
Yeah, so it's one thing to have a product that can solve a problem, but if you're not using it, it's worthless. So one of the things that we do is not just sell you a product, so to speak. We also have built a robust onboarding and an implementation process with an entire team. Like you get a dedicated financial coach, you get a dedicated account manager, and there's a step-by-step, clearly laid out process. You mark things complete as you go process of like, hey, like let's actually on this onboarding session, let's actually build a real estimate. Like let's not hang up and give you a list of homework to do. Let's actually build a real estimate on the call together and hit send on this thing together. So we're about doing real work on our onboarding sessions so that you're actually learning in real time with someone looking over your shoulder, as opposed to sign up, here's your stuff, watch these help videos, off you go. Most contractors aren't going to do real well with that kind of model.
No.
But we grew up with boots on the ground. We are contractors. We know what it's like, and so a lot of our team members, even on the customer success team, have a background in the contracting industry. So there's this like we get you factor, and like I don't care how awesome our product is, if you're not using it, it's worthless. That's how So we want to help you actually get to using it, and we know just human nature. It's hard to break old habits and start doing things a new way. So we want to be right there, holding your hand, white glove service, getting you over that hump initially, and we want to do it quickly. We don't want it to be dilly-dallying around for weeks or months on end. Like we want to see those first quotes being won in a matter of days. We do.
Yeah, and you mentioned you do have excavation contractors already using this, right? And they're loving it.
Yep, that's right.
That's cool. How do you envision SynkedUP moving forward here as technology advances? What kind of features do you have in the works and things like that?
So as we grow and mature as a software company, one of the things that AI is the latest big craze in the technological space, and there are logging data manually. Picture clocking in and clocking out on a time clock. It's not fun. Nobody ever woke up and said, I can't wait to clock in, right? Logging data, it requires humans to open up a page or an app and do something, type something in. And that requires human behavior change. And that is high friction. That's difficult to do. So as we grow, we want to use the new possibilities that are out there because of the way technology is evolving to just minimize and pare back the amount of manual input that needs to happen from a contractor. Things that can be done automatically, things that can be automated, have less and have the absolute minimum of human input needed possible, so that the software feels like less and less friction and more value being shown back to you because of just all the possibilities that are opening in this new age of AI and all of that. And picture all the things that could be automated based on time tracking, all the things could be automated based on keeping your budget up to date. There's tons of things that traditionally have been, hey, somebody needs to go in and update it. I need to update my pricing to my item catalog so that I'm not charging the wrong price to my customer, that kind of thing. Those are all areas where, as technology advances, you'll be able to do more and more of that stuff automatically without needing someone to manually sit there and do things.
Got it. What, as far as someone who's not tech savvy, how long would it take them on average to actually get this up and running, where they've got their templates in place for their pricing and they can actually go out and bid a job with this thing?
So we've had contractors that literally would do that within 24 hours of signing up, but they were like, I'm doing this. We've also had contractors that maybe they had nothing documented about pricing from their vendors. Like they would literally call their vendors to get pricing. They had nothing documented about any sort of like, hey, every time I do this kind of job, I need this material list, or like, so they're literally starting from scratch, you know. um, that can take a couple weeks to pull that all together, because what we like to do is say, hey, go get the pricing from your vendors. We'll just import it. Like if your vendor can send you a CSV file or a spreadsheet of all the product you buy from them, we can import that straight into the software, and you don't have to sit there and manually type it in. And then you'll never need to call them again and just ask them to send you updates when they change their pricing. So on average, the average SynkedUP user is what you said, using their own templates and production rates, sending out real bids to real customers, winning real work in 1 to 3 weeks is the typical time frame.
That's not bad. Must they have a laptop computer, or could they do this on a tablet?
You could do it on a tablet for sure. There's plenty of people that do. Personally, I just think there's more space. You can work faster when you have a keyboard, you know, but that's a personal preference. But yeah, you absolutely could run it entirely off of a tablet.
Now, as pricing changes, is there a way to dynamically change prices inside of SynkedUP, or should someone manually go in? How does that work?
Well, there's two different kind of inputs to your pricing that gets shown to your customer. One is what you pay for stuff, like direct costs, like materials and all of that. So that can be automatically updated. So let's say that in January, you got a price list from your vendor and you imported it. Now that vendor's saying, hey, pricing has changed. Here's the latest update. Here's another spreadsheet. You can just re-import the new one, and our system will find the matches and update the pricing based on whatever changed. So there's that. Then the other aspect is what happens if I hire an office admin? What happens if I buy a new truck? What happens to my pricing then? And so in that aspect, you just go into the software, into your budget, and when you buy a new truck, you put it in. When you hire an office admin, you put it in. When you give yourself a raise, you put it in. When you spend more money on marketing, you put it in. And that is dynamically always updating in the background, so that when you send out that next quote to your customer this afternoon, it's perfectly dialed in according to your budget, which is whatever your business is spending money on.
Oh, wow. So you are factoring in overhead costs, job costs, the whole shebang.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yep.
Let's shift gears just a little bit here. What sort of leadership principles, as the CEO and co-founder of SynkedUP, what sort of leadership principles have guided you through the development and growth of SynkedUP?
That is another software. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I kind of joke sometimes, like, listen, I'm just a foreman that would install outdoor living spaces in Podunk, PA, now trying to run a software company, right? But it's been a tremendous journey. I have a lot of, like my dad, he's been in business all his life. I have uncles. So I've been around business and entrepreneurship all my life, which has been a tremendous blessing. Got a lot of lessons from them and still do to this day. But probably something that's been more practical for me in growing SynkedUP and leading a tech company is getting into the same room with other people, other founders that are doing the same thing, learning from them. And Dan Martell is a guy that I follow. He wrote Buy Back Your Time. I have that book over there. I don't know if you've read that book or not.
Great book. Yeah, absolutely.
So I got into Dan's kind of sphere probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And there's just tons of leadership principles that I've gleaned off of him, and others too. I've heard of the quote of, don't find someone that's 10 steps ahead of you and try to emulate them. Try to find someone that's 1 step ahead of you, the next step ahead of you, and emulate them. Seek, because they're where you need to go next. But some things
that's a great tip right there. I love that.
Yeah, because we tend to, sequencing is important. You could be doing the right thing at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important. And sometimes we get that backwards when we look at someone that's multiple steps ahead of us and we like, well, I want to do what they did because they're obviously successful. Well, like maybe we should go work on the basics first, But some principles that I really have gotten inspiration from Dan and others on is, one of my favorites is the 1-3-1 framework, where as you're building your team, what tends to happen to us owner operators, that mentality is, oh, when an employee runs into a problem, they bring the problem to us and we solve it. We're always the one that has the solution. But the 131 framework is, okay, well, the price of raising a problem or a complaint is coming to you with 3 potential solutions and your 1 preferred solution. Meaning you don't have the price of raising a complaint or a problem is also bringing with it potential solutions. And oftentimes what will happen is, it just kind of has a culture shift or a mentality shift amongst your team when you do this, because what will often happen is like, oh, I know he's not gonna hear me until I bring with it 3 potential solutions. So what could those solutions be? Oh, well, that's the answer, duh. Like, and you don't ever have to bring it up, right? So that's huge.
I've been practicing the 131 rule myself, and it's so easy to say, oh, the hell with this, it's taking too long, and then just go ahead and fix it. But as entrepreneurs, we have to really draw the line and stop doing that, as hard as it seems.
It is hard. Like, you're addicted to I still fight it to this day. I think we all probably do. It's just like, do I take 2 minutes and do it myself, or do I take 20 minutes and explain and coach someone through? The temptation is to hack to the short-term solution, but it's the exact same temptation of, I'm not going to take the time to build a template. I'm just going to keep on spending 3 hours for every estimate I ever create forever in the future. It's the exact same hacking to the shortcut that will keep you in bondage to the same place you are today forever.
And as CEOs and business owners, if we don't let the team screw up and learn and do it themselves, then they'll never do it. It'll always be coming back to us. So
That's
it's like, I just had a situation like that just the other day, where normally I would be double checking this certain task. And finally I said, okay, they've had enough and enough training on this. And so I said, I trust you guys to do it. And so they worked through it, right? And then it was, okay, now are you sure that it's done right? And they said, yeah. And we use, that ClickUp software.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so that means then everything is marked as complete, correct? And they did it. They did it. They made it through on their own without any help from me. And so for those of you listening to this, it can happen. You just got to trust your team. And, but we all feel the need, don't we, to just put our hands in the cookie jar and.
Yeah. Probably one of the hardest thing to do is to let someone fail, and it feels like you're watching it in slow motion because it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, but letting that happen is not only the hardest thing for you to do as the owner, CEO, owner operator, but it's also the most valuable thing you could do for your teammate or your colleague or your employee. Because I give a quick example, like Dan was telling, to highlight this exact principle, he was telling a story one time of how he had someone taking care of a building for him, and the garage door kept on sticking, and all it needed was a few squirts of WD-40. That's all it needed. And so he called this person and said, hey, the garage door doesn't work. Like, fix it. He didn't give him anything else. And his wife was like, why are you doing that? Just grab that good can of WD-40 right over there and just squirt it. He's like, no, I don't want to rob him the ability to find and identify the problem and find the solution. Like that, I don't want to take that opportunity away from them. It's the thing, fixing the thing wasn't even the point.
Right.
It was giving them the opportunity to identify a problem and come up with a solution. And through that, you garner a culture of problem solving, autonomy, a team of people that are self-starters and self-initiative, as opposed to, an owner or a CEO with a savior complex that has to be there to solve every problem.
Well, and we're kind of going off on a tangent, right? But this is a fun conversation too. But we sometimes forget that our team, they want to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. I was an employee my whole life at Texas Landscaping. I wasn't an owner until SynkedUP. So, but I loved I believe that most human beings genuinely want to do a good job. They
Yeah.
want to be valued. They want to feel like they're contributing.
Yeah.
When owners say nobody wants to work, people are terrible, blah blah blah, I'm like, I get it. I do get it. I've seen it, and you just shake your head. But usually, that stuff is a reflection of our own leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, and it could be that they shouldn't be working for you at all because they do not have the desire to do well, or it could mean that I need to step up as a leader and guide the culture and do things like the 1-3-1 framework and be an example of the mentality and the mindset with which we work here.
Yeah. Interesting conversation.
The other thing that you touched on that another principle that has been really helpful for us is I'll start it by saying this. So many times as contractors, we view ourselves as doers of work. Like, we're proud of our craft. We love what we do. We got into the business because we love what we do, and we're proud of it. And we pride ourselves on doing a really, really good job. And we tend to have that mentality, but that is the mentality that leads you to owning a job and not a business. A business owner is not a builder or a doer of work. They are a builder and doer or implementer of systems and processes. That's your chief title. You are not an excavator. You are a builder of systems and processes. And systems and processes will set you free from the entrepreneurial prison.
Preaching the truth, Weston. You are. You are.
And when you are building systems and processes, this is what you were saying earlier. It was what niggled my memory on this. When you are building systems and processes, one of the best things you can do at the end of that documentation or whatever it is you're doing is create a definition of done.
Mm-hmm.
Because what can so often happen when you do build systems and processes is someone goes through and checks off all the things in it. They feel like it got done because they followed all the steps. They went through all the motions, but maybe they didn't know the why behind one of those check boxes, and they didn't know something. And even though they finished all the tasks, it's not actually done because somewhere a gap was left. And so at the end of it, like, hey, go through the motions. Here's the principles. Here's the things you have to do. But at the end, this is the definition of done.
Yeah. Good stuff.
That's another Dan Martell thing from that Buy Back Your Time book.
Nice. So how can people learn more about SynkedUP and reach out to you if they need more help?
Well, let me share a couple things. So if you're curious, we have a bunch of free resources. If you're curious but not sure you should spend money on software, we have a bunch of free resources that will help you figure out how to know your numbers manually, like a free budgeting tool, free stuff. You just go to synkedup.com, go down to the footer and click on resources, and everything's there.
Let's spell it though, because SynkedUp, SynkedUP.com.
Correct.
All right.
Yep. Thank you for that. I spend most of my activity online is on Instagram. So if you go to the SynkedUP, spelled the same way, SynkedUP, Instagram, that's where you'll see me at events and you kind of see all our podcasts and all of that, which, by the way, we have a podcast as well called The Cost of Doing Business, where I interview SynkedUP contractors. And we also do an annual live event called the Contractor Summit. And it's October 3rd and 4th this year in Dayton, Ohio. And the format is we bring in a bunch of speakers, motivational speakers, business speakers. We do a bunch of sessions just around business systems and processes for people. And it's not for SynkedUP users alone. Like last year, 30% of the attendees were not even SynkedUP users. So it's for contractors. It's basically the way I want the Contractor Summit to be is, get in the room with other people who are in the grind of business just like you are, take a breather and just charge yourself, be inspired to take that next step in your business and building your business. And we give out awards there for SynkedUP users that are doing a fantastic job on certain areas of their business. And we also do a business spotlight. So this year we're spotlighting J Squared Outdoor in Dayton, Ohio. He's the host, who's a tremendous fiberglass swimming pool builder, outdoor living spaces company. And this guy, he's building a new shop right now, and he like the way this guy's brain thinks around leveraging equipment and process and logistics, like he's just a genius. And so we're gonna pull back the wraps and do a tour of his operation while we're there. So, hey, if you're curious and want to get in the room with other SynkedUP users and want to see what we're all about, that's definitely a place to do it.
Cool. So Contractor Summit, October 3rd and 4th. I assume they can still get tickets for that.
Yep.
Yeah, very nice.
Yep. If you Google SynkedUP Contractor Summit, it'll come right up. All the information's there. You can register there. And by the way, I guess I should also mention, if you're like, no, I want to see the software, you can also go to the website, synkedup.com, and there you can book a call to get on a call with us, where we just essentially try to discover like what challenges you're dealing with right now, what you'd like to get better at in your business, and see if that maps to what we have in SynkedUP. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, no problem. Like at the end of the day, we just solve a problem, and the sales call is all about trying to discover if you have the problem that we solve. And if not, then we'll add value wherever we can and shake hands and move on.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, with that said, I guess we can go ahead and bring this to a close. I want to thank you for being a guest on the podcast, and a tremendous amount of value you provided. I love talking with you about your software, and then also the whole business systems and processes. And, I dig it. It was very fun. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, man. Yeah, I love this stuff. Like, be a student your whole life is kind of my philosophy. And, one thing I am learning on the whole leadership thing, like I'm not very old. I'm only 33 years old. Is just like, every time you conquer, you get over the next peak, you see the next one up above you. So life is a constant learning and growing journey. And if the moment we say, no, I'm good, I don't want to climb that next peak, that's where we hit our ceiling. And that's where growth stops. And I'm a fan of the growth mindset, and always striving to be better every day. It's so I love talking about this stuff. This was fun for me too.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, with that said, I will go ahead and bring it to a close, and thank you so much.
Right on. Thank you, brother.
Thanks.
Hey there, excavation pros. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and channel. Leave us your feedback and let us know how we did. And hey, if you're interested in taking your excavation or septic business to the next level online, make sure you visit excavationmarketingpros.com today and take advantage of our free resources and mastermind group for excavation and septic industry professionals.